Just irritate them.
I will. I will.
Maybe.
I will. I'm
There
afraid,
you go.
I'm afraid that if
Unplug
I
it.
do, something else will shut off. Okay, let's go ahead,
Did you find it?
pray,
Yep, it's right after, yep,
and then we'll,
it's right
Yeah, right
after
after, yeah.
Leviticus, right?
with your permission, I'm not gonna go faster. I'll just go till I'm done.
Oh,
For those of you who sit under my teaching regularly, that might scare you.
Yeah.
I know,
Show
I
me
know.
this.
She had church today, and I said, well,
What
we
time,
Brian
what
gotta
time
come
do
in
you get
once in a
home?
while, and he said, she
I
said,
said, well, you
how
guys
long?
can come.
I mean, what time is mass? She said, well, it starts at 9:30 and got done at 10:50, and I said, oh my, that's even longer than a Catholic mass.
It's because we sing a lot. It's not because he talks that much.
Oh, service, sorry.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Mass, or, I understand it. I'm bilingual.
try.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be assembled as believers, and what that means for us. Lord, because we're going to spend eternity together, so we better learn to get it right here. Bless us in our study, our thinking, the whole process of application. We look to you tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. So, Book of Numbers, right? So we've already pointed to the fact that Genesis is the idea of conception. It's the first of many things, the start of many things. It's the creation of Adam and Eve. It's the introduction of sin into the world. God didn't do it. Lucifer did it. We followed. It's the first ever destruction of the known world through the flood. It's the first calling of the patriarch of the faith, Abraham, and his wife Sarah. So many firsts, right? So that's the picture of conception. And God says to Eve, and why we get this thing that we're following is, I'm going to bring a seed, right? That's why the picture is what it is. In Exodus, we get the birth. Nation is delivered into existence. You see kind of the illustrations of the labor pains. Israel comes out, comes across the Red Sea, delivered into existence, and they're going to be brought to a place. If you remember the sons of Noah, Canaan is one of the children of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and he's going to have this land that God is going to deliver judgment upon, okay, because they're not following God. They know better. Their ancestors were the children of Noah, and they should have followed God, and they didn't. So after 450 years, God tells Abraham, I'm going to bring you here, but not until the sins of these people reach their climax. When they do, I'll deliver judgment. You get the land of Canaan. Okay? And this, I'm trying to remember, it gets so diluted down because if you don't pay attention and you don't read those genealogies closely, you ask yourself the same question I always have to go back to. Okay, now we're going to be studying tonight people like the Moabites and the Midianites and the Amorites. Where did they come from? Well, you know, you have to follow those genealogies, and that's very difficult to keep those things straight or it gets all messed up. But Numbers is the place where God is going to take Moses and the tribe of Israel, and he is going to move them to the promised land. That's his intent. Now, if you know the story of the Bible, you know they're going to fail miserably, and they're not going to make it to Canaan. And so the book of Numbers is all about them being punished, so to speak. It's the timeout, if you will. God says, okay, if you're not ready for it, then I'm going to move you off into this wilderness that you're in. You're going to be here for 40 years until this generation of people that wouldn't do what I said die off. Once we have their children and in place, then I'll move you into the promised land. I'll give it to you like I said I would. And Moses is going to lead them up to the point where they get there, but he isn't going to be able to go in himself. Okay? So, here's what we have. The first thing is, just so you can see that pretty much where they're at is Saudi Arabia, right? So they're going to leave Egypt, they're going to come up, cross the Red Sea, God's going to part for them, they're going to go all the way down to the southern tip here where Sinai's at. And here they're going to stay, and this is where we're going to get the very first part of our page. They're at Sinai. And everything that you're going to see from chapters 1 to chapters 10 is, the next thing you're going to fill in is about them planning or preparing. They are getting ready to go. God's saying, guys, we're all done. We're here at the mountain. You've got your commandments. We've done the Levitical law. We know the family rules, right? We're good. So now we're getting our bags packed. Everybody's got all the things that they need. And so we're getting prepared, getting ready, and the planning all takes place. The very first thing that they need to do in this planning process, one, is take a census. We need to know how many men, and again, because we're talking in a patriarchal system, that's what they're going to count. And I can't tell you right now, we'll find it as we go along. We're going to find that at this point in time when they do the counting, there's over 600,000 men. Do the math. I told you before it was believed between 2 million and 10 million people that left Egypt. They're actually going to give you the count on this, and they're going to tell you this is how many men we've got. This is what we had when we left. This is what we've got when we're here. So we know that we've got millions of people that are actually going to go with. So, chapter 1, that's what you see. That's the whole thing. Get down to the end of verse 46. The total number was. You have chapter 1, verse 46. You have the total number of Israelite men. And this was the Israelite men 20 years or old or more who were able to serve an Israelite's army were counted according to their families. So they have to be 20 years old to make the census. Okay? In Israelite law, you had to be 20 years to serve in the military, and I think we should do this today when it comes to the pastorate. You're not allowed to serve as a priest until you're 30. You can start training at 20. It takes 10 years to become a pastor or priest. And that's probably what it should take today. Unfortunately, we've gone far, far away from where we've been. Right? Years and years ago, pastor was probably one of, if not the highest trained person in your community. That is not the case anymore. Today we say, you want to be a pastor? Here's a license. So, census. Next, you have camp layout. Right? This is how Israel is supposed to form its camp. Now remember, all we're doing at this point in time as we're reading the book is we're understanding how God is packaging them or preparing them to get there. He says, let's count, all right? Make sure we have everybody in the tribe. We want to make sure that we've got everybody accounted for. The next thing we want to do is make sure that we have the camp laid out properly. Now, underneath this, you're going to get chapter 2 is going to be all about the tribes. That's probably someone calling saying, are you guys really open? I see lights on there.
Oh, yeah. I thought that very thing. Lock the door.
Chapter 3 is all about so you've got the tribes and how they lay out, and then God's going to say, do you remember that crude example I gave you of how it looked, how they are all? We're going to see a little bit better example of it tonight. But here's Cheryl's verse, okay? Cheryl, I did this just for you so you could highlight it in your Bible, okay? This is chapter 3. It says, appoint Aaron and his sons to serve as priests. Anyone else who approaches the sanctuary must be put to death. Okay, now, we all kind of agreed that maybe we would want to stop them first and just get them out of the way. Cheryl says, nope, we kill them all, and that's where we're at, all right? Actually, Cheryl's very close, and you're going to see this. You're going to see when anybody gets close to where they're not supposed to be in the camp of God, that is exactly what's going to happen.
Man, Randy's so soft. Oh, just stop.
Yes, yeah.
Would you stop?
You see this barbed wire? Don't you know what that means? All right. So then you get a breakdown in chapter 4. It's all about the different types of priests, right? You've got your Levites and your, I got to remember, Kohathites and Gershonites and everybody who has a responsibility with temple or tabernacle instruments. Okay, some of them took care of the curtains, some of them took care of the log posts, some of them were responsible for the utensils on the inside, and then when they all came to a place where God says, this is where we rest, then all the priests went to work to making sure the temple was put back together exactly the way it was supposed to be. Okay? It's really straightforward stuff, not a problem. Okay, now I'm going to give you, this is really cool. If you can't see this, guys, at least this is the one picture that I want you to see out of the whole thing. Because, tell me what the camp of Israel looked like.
Cross.
The cross of Jesus Christ. That's correct. So, here you have all of the tribes as they're camped in the wilderness, right? And then you have Moses' little group right here, right out in front. So you know then you got Kohath, Gershon, and Mari, and those are the 4 sets of priests. Now, can you imagine somebody wandering in from the outside, right? All of these people surrounding it. You better stop before you get here. Because if you get here, all these people have strict orders to end your life. But this is the picture that we get of how the camps were and how they moved out through Israel and assembled. And it reminds us of God was already working through grace in order to bring people salvation in the Old Testament. We don't switch from Old Testament God of judgment who wants to just bring his hammer down on you to New Testament and find a God of grace. The God of grace has been working all the way through since the beginning of Genesis and takes us all the way through the New Testament. Remember, the laws are meant to preserve us. Remember we read in Galatians I think it was the first night. The law is meant to preserve the people, not kill the people. If we don't have order, all the people will end up killing themselves off, and God says, I can't have that. I got to make sure that my lineage gets through to the person that it's supposed to so that I can deliver the Son of God. So he's been working in grace the whole time.
Is it, the diagram in my Bible has them sideways. Did they,
Yes.
is that like it doesn't matter if they're like this or
Or turn the other
or
way.
turn the other way facing it? They have them all next to one another on each square instead
You
of
mean
vertical.
like 1, 2, 3?
Yes.
From everything I've seen, it's one behind the other.
How the order worked? Who got
Yeah,
first
how
up
did-
front?
God told them.
Ah,
God told them exactly who they were supposed to be, the heads of their tribes, then their tribes that followed. Right? Are these mine?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to make it through.
You brought 2.
Yes. And you can, I want you to get bogged down in that minutia of reading. For the sake of the class, it'd be very difficult for us to stop and really get all the way down there.
it's just God told them that's enough.
God said, this is how you look. This is how you order. This is how you gather together. Okay. Is it making sense? Are we okay? 3 and 4.
So people really would come from the outside and try to sneak in?
Oh, people will come from the outside in this book. And we will find out what happens to them.
I mean, that would be really intimidating.
All these people?
Yeah.
Millions and millions of people? I know, I don't think I would ever, but do you remember the difference between New Testament and Old Testament ministry? Old Testament ministry was come and see, right? These people have a God that sets himself up in the middle of the camp, and by day he is a pillar of smoke, and by night he is a pillar of fire. I've got to see this for myself. And it actually became the thing that the Philistines wanted in the Old Testament. Do you remember the Philistine god Dagon? Do you remember what happens when they come in and they take the help me out here. My brain just stopped. Ark of the Covenant. Thank you. Yes, they take the Ark of the Covenant and they bring it back to Philistia with them, and they put it in the same temple with Dagon. Remember what happened to Dagon every night? He falls over every time, because this God of Israel is God. Period. It's not like we have God and then we have other gods. God is God. And so in this picture here, it's a come and see ministry, but you have to come what?
God's way.
One way. That's correct. We only get to come in and see God if we become followers of God. You don't get to just come and watch God and look at God and say, hey, this is great. Love it. Bask in the glory. Well, let's go home. Okay? So, now we're going to get to the third thing that's happening here. Yes, ma'am.
What is to scale the mileage there of?
Oh, my word.
As they said, because they were,
Millions. They're what?
well, they were, like on the map, they're in different regions, but to the north and to the,
Yes.
so it's like we're talking 300 miles from,
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, they're going to, I think when you look at the map, they're going to move about, right? And every time they settle, they have to reassemble in this fashion. Now, I don't know when you're looking at 2 to 10 million people, how much that takes up. If you've ever seen, like in Washington, D.C., just the Million Man March, how much that takes up, how much acreage that is. This is a lot of space. This isn't, we're talking, well, there's only what? 4,000 people here in Wadena, right?
Yeah.
So now I want you to, this is why I think some practical reasons why God has them move often. Is it punishment that God says, okay, you're going to wander in the desert and I'm going to make you keep moving? They don't move as often as you think. But why are we going to move?
Because it's dirty.
Because you start killing this many animals. Now, I know you've got sand, right? So we're going to absorb a lot of the rock, or a lot of the blood and the stench, but you can't stay here for long periods of time in that magnitude of a group and keep things clean. So we're going to pack up, and we're going to move, and we're going to actually revisit once in a while, once the sand's blown over, right? And we can come back, okay, we'll do that. But God's a practical God. He's not just saying, you know what, this is kind of like MASH, Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, right? We're going to make you move. It's not like that. It's the fact that we have to remain clean, and that's the chapters 5 through 10, right? So we're going to move to the next point, and we're going to deal with camp cleanliness. Now I have to go in, because it would be good to just look at some of these things. I'm not going to look at them in depth. I'm just going to go, okay, the purity of the camp. Look at chapter 5, beginning of it. Just says, the Lord said to Moses, command the Israelites to send away from the camp anyone who has an infectious skin disease or discharge of any kind, or who is ceremonially unclean because of a dead body. Is this God being mean?
Taking care of them.
Man, he's just saying, guys, if you come across a dead body of any kind, it's not just human. This is where Samson gets himself in trouble when he eats the honey out of the lion. He's a Nazarite. He's not supposed to be touching a dead body. Why? Because after a while, and not very long after a while, these things start carrying disease. And so God is saying, I want you to be careful. I don't want you to keep all this uncleanliness within the camp. So and now we're going to start seeing, how are we clean? What methods are we clean? Well, there's restitution if I've done wrong. I need to pay back what I've done. What if I've been unfaithful in a relationship? And unfortunately, ladies, this is specifically unfaithfulness because of a wife. Again, because we're in a patriarchal system. Jesus will deal with this in the New Testament when he gets there. Okay? We're going to talk about the Nazirite vow, which is what we see with Samson. Okay? Anybody who wants to become a Nazirite can. That's pretty interesting. Not anybody gets to be a priest, but anybody can take the Nazirite vow. Okay?
What's a Nazirite?
Someone who sets themselves apart for God's purpose. That's why Samson was born Nazirite. And had to take the vow from a very early age. Okay, so you're saying to them, Lord, I set myself apart for you. I may not be called I may not be from the tribe of Levi or for one of the clans of his, but I can set myself apart for God's purpose. And there are certain regulations and restrictions that go into being a Nazirite.
Is that where being a nun came from?
We'll get there way down the line when we get to Catholicism as it comes out of New Testament era. But what it meant to dedicate yourself to God and kind of be considered married. Yep. We won't get to that for a long time, by the way. You may decide after this group you don't want to come back for the New Testament. You just stick in for the Old Testament. That won't be till next fall. And prayerfully, hopefully, if COVID does not interfere, it will not be in this building. I hope. You have the Nazirite vow. You have the priestly blessing. You guys ever hear this often? If you have a Lutheran or Catholic background, you hear this. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Right? That actually comes out of the Old Testament. This is what the words God wanted to use for the priests to bless the people. Then you get the offerings at the dedication of the tabernacle. In other words, God's saying, this is how we're going to party. Okay, we're going to get together, we're going to celebrate. Once this is all done, we get this all up. We're in the promised land. This is how I want you to do it. I want you to bring these offerings to me and offer them to me. And they have to be clean. They have to be, what is the offering of God? Typically, I'm not looking for, the red heifer. I'm looking, what was the offering supposed to be when offered to God? Without blemish. Right, so you don't get to just choose, well, that calf over there is limping. He's going to die anyway. Let's just offer it to God, right? God says, listen, I come first. I'm telling you, you have to choose from the best of what you got. That's the whole point of first fruits, because first fruits were the best of the crops. And God is saying, listen, I take priority in your lives. These are what you need to do. Now, when we get to Deuteronomy next 2 weeks, you will see why God is instituting these laws. Have you ever asked the question, honestly, if God is a spirit, why in the world does he need to have a barbecue? And if God is a spirit, why in the world do I need to turn in my first fruits? This makes no sense. Right? This gets explained when we get to the book of Deuteronomy. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. My wife's very happy. Now we have the setting up of the lamps, which is just a utensil or an article inside of the tabernacle. You have the setting apart of the Levites, who are going to be the priesthood of the Old Testament. We're going to have the order about the Passover, how to celebrate the Passover. Then we're going to get the description of the cloud. Now at this point, we're not really dealing with cleanliness. I should have probably stopped and made this at about number 4. Sorry. Okay? Because at this point, he's just going to talk about what the cloud looks like.
It was probably Randy's.
It was, no, I actually sent it over this way. I thought, now here's the cool thing. Okay, now this is, and I included in this because we're still preparing, right? We're still packing up. Now, the last thing that we're going to see in chapter 10 are 2 silver trumpets that are going to be designed. The silver trumpets were used to assemble Israel when we're going to move. God says, we're done. We got to get out of here. It stinketh in here, right? Let's get up. Let's move. So what do? Blow the trumpets. And what does the Bible say in the New Testament about when Jesus comes back? Get yourself ready, because at the trumpet blast, I'm gathering my people. That's really cool. Here is the symbol that we get, right, in the Old Testament about what God is going to do for his people. And so we have a trumpet, silver trumpets that are designed. That is all of the rules, if you will, or all of the Father looking at the children and saying, get yourself ready, because we're moving out. Okay? We have a lot of regulations, a lot of rules. Everybody's got responsibilities. Make sure we're ready to go. Right? Did you count? Everybody see Left Alone or Home Alone? You know, did you make sure you counted everybody off? We don't want to leave anybody back. All right. So now we're going to move.
That would take a long time to make sure everybody's there for millions of people.
Oh, and that's why you got to read through this and find out the responsibilities of each tribe, right? Because each tribe knew who they had.
Oh.
And so it's not just the responsibility of necessarily the Levites. You have clan leaders who know who are responsible. You know, it's not really hard for, how many kids do you have?
7.
How do you know that?
Oh, they were all there.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you saw them. You got give birth to them, right? So look, I know how many are in my family, and so each tribesman, each tribal leader is going to know, who do we got? Are we all taken care of? Are we all here? Are we all safe? We're getting ready to move out. We don't want to leave anybody home alone. Okay? So now we're going to move from Sinai. Remember, we're in Numbers and we're still at Sinai. Still in the mountain. Haven't left. By the way, remember, we failed miserably, did we not already? How did we fail miserably? On Mount Sinai? Moses comes down with the tent.
Built a calf.
Oh, man. You know, and we're going to find out as we move on that it seems that they're not going to get any smarter. And as you move into the New Testament, and you see the apostles, and you see the church, and you see God's people, and you say to yourself, still haven't gotten any smarter. I'm not insulting any one person's intelligence tonight. I'm insulting everybody's intelligence tonight, all right? And I would be the leader of that stupid pack, probably. Okay, as you see the middle of 10, Israelites leave Sinai, right? All right, so let's leave Sinai. Where are we going to go? The wilderness of Paran. And it's here we're going to move from preparation, and we're going to move to protests. I had to use that word because where we're at,
Political.
because it has never ended. It is, you know, those of us, if you've grown up, well, if you've grown up in the 60s and 70s, you remember protests. From the 80s, 90s, 2000s up till now, you probably really haven't seen much. Now we're seeing it again, but humankind hasn't changed, right? We still bellyache and we have problems. Okay, so here's what I want you to see. Generally, we've moved from Mount Sinai, and we're going to come up here to Kadesh Barnea. is where they're going to launch out and look at Canaan. So it is in this area that they're going to move to. Now, they're not even wandering yet, right? They haven't failed yet. I think that's Numbers 13. They're just moving to the promised land. And they start grumbling and complaining. You know, it's like, do you remember what they complain about? 2 things. First of all,
Food.
really, is it this bread? I mean, I know that manna's good, but can't we get a little meat once in a while? Same complaint that we saw in Exodus. Okay, so back to the protesting. Now, here's how we're going to protest. Right? We're going to start comparing. Okay, in Egypt, I had this. It was better in Egypt. You know, I don't like the menu here. All we get's manna or quail. I really wish at least we had bitter herbs back in our pot. And we had something to spice up the flavor.
They
You
have
know?
manna helper is what they have.
And what?
Manna helper.
Manna helper, that's right. Yeah. So, and this fits into this morning. This fits into the last many weeks of teaching on Sunday mornings. And for those of you who aren't there with us, we've been going through a lot of the signs in the Gospel of John, the 7 signs that are there. Now we're going, backing up, and we're taking a look at, again, tonight, man, lots of misfires going on inside of my head.
I am.
7 I am statements of God, yes. So, and today's I am statement was the bread of life. That follows the feeding of 5,000 in John's chapter 6. And all the people want in John is what? More bread. Hey, can you do us that miracle? You know that thing where you multiplied loaves? Our father in the desert, Moses, he gave us bread to eat. See, thousands of years later, we're not going to change. We're going to have the same issue. Now, so comparison, right? Now here's a really cool one. I'm not even going to bring it up. I'm just going to have you turn to me. Turn in there with me. Let's go to chapter 12. All right. This, when I first discovered this, I'm not saying it's me who discovered it. I'm saying when it was first taught to me. And I don't know how many years ago it's been, and I even forget who it was that taught it to me. This floored me. It was probably you. Yeah, honey, you're probably right. It's probably you. My wife can say with lots of confidence, we did our undergrad together, the same thing. My undergrad is in Bible and Pastoral Ministries, hers is in Bible and Office of Administration, and she was a better student than I was.
I was just more compliant.
Oh, that's surprising. That's surprising.
Writing papers as I was supposed to. This is what you're supposed to believe. Yeah, but that's not what it said. And I would get docked. You have a hard time believing that, Cheryl?
Sure. No, just another one I had to chalk up.
Chapter 12, Miriam and Aaron, brother and sister of Moses. Well, they began to talk to Moses about his Cushite wife. What's wrong with the Cushite wife? For he had married a Cushite. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses, they asked? Hasn't he also spoken through us? And the Lord heard this. Now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. At once the Lord said to Moses, Aaron and Miriam, come out to the tent of meeting, all 3 of you. So all 3 of them came out. Then the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud. He stood at the entrance of the tent and summons Aaron and Miriam. When both of them stepped forward, he said, listen to my words. When a prophet of the Lord is among you, I reveal myself to him in visions. I speak to him in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face. Clearly, and not in riddles, he sees the form of the Lord. Why then are you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? The anger of the Lord burned against them, and he left them. And when the cloud lifted from above the tent, there stood Miriam, leprous. Now, this is really interesting. If you're an underliner in your Bible, underline the words white as snow. When you do a study on the Cushite tribe, they are the darkest pigmented Africans known. Make that comparison to being as leprous and white as snow. What was their problem with Moses taking a Cushite wife? Now, the text doesn't tell us.
Racism.
Oh, yes. So we don't just have a comparison issue here. We have a race issue. Where did Moses get off thinking he could take himself a wife that isn't of the same tribe or color as us?
So it wasn't a belief issue. There wasn't a difference in their religion.
Not, and specifically, if you were one who was willing to follow God. Right? You could become an Israelite by worshiping the Lord and becoming a convert. So Moses took for himself this wife. Now, I'm going to say here, this is not the design of God. Not in my opinion. Okay? Some of you can argue with me if you want, that's fine. I do not believe that the Old Testament teaches that polygamy is right. Adam and Eve were brought together. What was the purpose for multiple wives in the Old Testament? Why did Abraham, was he given Sarah's servant?
Have kids,
Why did they need kids?
because they were a blessing. They were,
Multiply.
So that he
See?
could.
oh, to get,
Wine.
oh,
There you go. That's the key.
What did he say?
The seed. We need to get the seed. And Sarah says, I can't have children. None of the women of promise could have children. So what are we going to do?
Do it our way.
We're going to do it our way. We are going to circumvent God's plan. Especially when I watch Abraham getting older. And Sarah's saying, I'm not getting any younger. How is this ever? I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, you know, at that point, physically impossible. Even Sarah says, I'm dried up. I can't have children anymore. So, when we get to here, this is all, we get into this whole thing and we find out, I'm on the Old Testament, God not wanting multiple wives. They started taking multiple wives for themselves in order to have children because children were a blessing. It didn't mean that God ordained it. It means that God allowed it. Because all the other people, God is working with them graciously and moving them slowly. Jesus will address this issue in the New Testament. But as far as the old, matter of fact, we'll see here in just a little bit, what's going to become the number one problem in Israel when we get to Solomon and David? Why will the kingdom collapse? Because Solomon likes women. And he can't get enough of them. And he's going to bring them in and he's going to follow their gods.
That's what they was just gonna ask was, how did he bless Solomon so, all that Solomon did, but it goes to show he blessed everybody.
Why
Didn't
does
do
God
anything
bless
for
us?
them.
And
Yeah.
all that we do.
So that's why I answered my own question.
Absolutely, yes. It's an interesting study. Okay, so racism is a big, I think that's what it's telling us. The text doesn't say that, okay? it's a lot of inductive reasoning, but it's also a lot of deductive reasoning here. So we get this Cushite lady who more than likely was very dark in skin pigmentation. They didn't like her, and God says, "Fine, you don't like black. I'll give you white." And we know the rest of the story. Moses prays for her; she gets better. Okay, now we're up to exploring Canaan, right? So now we're going to get to Kadesh Barnea, which is where they're going to go into the Promised Land. I want to make sure. Do I have on your thing? Look at verse 33.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, look at verse 33. So they're going to go in. They're going to go into Canaan. They're going to wander around. Remember what they got back. Joshua and Caleb says, "We can do this," but the people say, "Oh, we can't do this." Why? Because we look like grasshoppers in their eyes, right? Who's there?
The Nephilim.
Oh, my word. So we have the very thing that we started out in Genesis seeing is that whatever it was that's going on in Noah's age, and by the way, I needed to correct myself, Nephilim does not mean giants. Rephaim means giants. Nephilim means fallen ones. So from the fallen ones intermarrying with women, we get heroes of old, men of renown, the Bible says. By the way, take this through any other religious practice, and maybe that's not the right way to say it. In Greek or Rome religion, what do you get from that particular thing? Heroes of old, men of renown. Oh, Zeus. You get the whole god system. Because, wow, time flies when you're having fun. Okay? So you can, Greek mythology is the same thing as Roman mythology, they're just names are switched. Okay? And you get the Trinity in, I gotta remember my Zeus, Hades, and the god of the sea.
Titan.
That
I
Titans.
think you're going to say Thor. I don't think that's
Yeah,
When in doubt,
Who is the god of the sea?
I can't remember his name. He's got the,
Atlantis.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, I can't, yeah. Atlanta is not yet. But anyway, you can take this and see how in the Greek culture
Poseidon.
developed. Poseidon, thank
Sorry.
you. Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't
That's
go on.
okay, I was waiting for you. I'm like, it's showing up on his forehead. There it is, yes. So you can take this whole thing and you can see how groups began to develop the idea of God and what he was like and how they carried over into their culture. Now, the issue is you're going to say to me, like I say to myself when I'm doing this type of study is, but is Judaism really the oldest religion there is? Aren't there other religions older than Judaism? Well, it all depends on where you started. If you started with Abraham, yes. But Judaism isn't, even though you get the father of the group of the Jews there, you really get the promise back in Genesis. Okay? So are there other ancient cultures that have so-called gods? How do we know that we're serving the right God? We all have stories. Every ancient major religion in the world or civilization has a flood story. How do we know we're serving the right God? The only reason we know we're serving the right God is because you were raised in your family to believe what you believe, right? How do you undo Christianity? I've said it, I think, every week. You dismantle the resurrection. If you do not have the resurrection of Jesus Christ, you've got nothing. You have systems and you have religions, but you don't have deity. You can't prove it. All you get to go back to the Old Testament and say, well, Moses did this, and this particular God, this Yahweh showed himself. Well, I'm not really certain I believe that. It's as good a story. It's the Epic of Gilgamesh. Let's just use that. Why can't we just believe that? Because we don't have any other person. We don't, in any religion, take any faith-based system, you don't have anyone claiming to be God. You have them claiming to be a great man. You have Muhammad in Islam in 600 claiming to be a prophet after Jesus. But the problem is Jesus said at the cross, it's finished. I'm done. My Father's work's done. We don't need somebody else coming on. That's why we totally reject Islam, because Islam comes off of Ishmael, not the children of the promise. And that's a whole other thing that you're going, you're starting to preach, Jeff. Quit it. Okay, so we have doubting God, right? Spies in Canaan. We have the Nephilim still here, meaning that either whatever they are, and I won't get into that with you right now, it'll freak you out, right? Whatever they are, do you remember when we got into this? I teach this to our youth group courses, right? And then we go through it each Sunday. And so Cora is doing this the second time. We're going a little bit more in depth, are we not? So, and I remember she's like, no way! She's arguing with me the whole time. She's like, that can't be. But whatever they are, either they don't die off in the flood, or they're redoing it again to mess with God's plan. We don't know, right? Now, lots of theories out there, lots of things to study on what this is. It's very interesting. My brother and I will spend hours on the phone at night discussing what this is. So we have doubting God. They come back. They say we can't do it. Only Joshua and Caleb say they can. Remember that Joshua and Caleb are the only two that are going to enter into the promised land from this generation of people. We'll see that later. Okay, the next one, Korah's rebellion. Right? So now this is the thing on. If I'm going to protest, I'm protesting about doubting God, and now I'm going to protest about who has the right to lead. No, I know you hear God, but I hear God. Jesus in the New Testament is going to tell I got to remember my Gospels. The one's going to be in John. I can't remember. There are two Gospels that do this. And in the one, it is James and John's request, but the other gospel tells us that it's not James and John's request, it's their mother's request. And they say to Jesus, can my son sit on your right and on your left? Remember this? And Jesus says, well, that's not for me to decide. But he says to them, the Gentiles in leadership and authority, they rule over. They use their position to rule over. Not so with you. It's Mark. Mark chapter 10. Yes, sorry, it just comes back. I believe. Not so with you, he says. For the Son of Man did not come to serve, or to be served, but to serve. See, everybody thinks, well, being the position, I want to be the CEO. I want to call the shots. And God's looking and saying, you don't understand leadership. Leadership isn't about getting your way. It isn't about telling people what to do. Leadership is about serving people and helping them become all that they can be. I'm not trying to sound like the army, okay? So, position. Now, we're going to move to the third one. Now we're to the right of your blue. Okay? And now we are in the plains of Moab. Because they did not enter the promised land. Now they have to wander around for 40 years. Okay? It's okay if I take 10 minutes?
Yeah.
We didn't finish up. We didn't start till about 10 after. That was my fault. But I don't want to end it. Now, we had some, I don't want to skip over, you know, when you start arguing over who gets what with Moses, right? Who gets to be the leader? You find the budding of Aaron's staff, which is going to show you who's the high priest. God's actually going to give a line of demarcation for them to know which ones he's chosen in order to lead. And leadership is never going to get easy for the people who lead for God, ever. Leadership is always going to be difficult. Even Jesus, when he calls his 12 to lead, he is going to call them to literally give up their lives. Okay? So then you're going to get the duties after we get the budding of Aaron's staff, and we know that Aaron is the high priest. We're going to get the duties of priests and Levites, the offerings for priests and Levites, right? How do we take care of these people? They have no inheritance. They have no land. They're not going to get anything in the promised land, so how do we take care of them? God has a system for that. Okay? You have the water of cleansing, which is going to be used ceremonially. It's also going to be used not just in ceremony, it's going to be used physically, especially after war. Once they've killed, if you've killed anybody, this book specifically talks about it. I expect you to read it so that you know what, you know. If you have any utensils that can withstand fire, you actually have to put them in the fire so that the heat kills off whatever germs, and then you wash them with the water of cleansing. So before you can actually enter back into the camp, you have to have a purification period, especially if you've killed anybody, because now you've touched a dead body. Right? So God's going to make certain, okay, we've got Moses, we've got the leadership, we're going to make sure we get off to a right start. People are going to grumble and complain. Now, you're going to get some things here, like chapter 21, Arad destroyed. When the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev, heard that the Israelite was coming along the road to Erethaim, he attacked the Israelites and captured some of them. Then Israel made this vow to the Lord, if you will deliver these people into our hands, we will totally destroy their cities. The Lord listened to Israel's plea, gave the Canaanites over to them, they completely destroyed them and their towns, and the place was named Hormah. What's this all about? It is what? I gotta put these 3 verses. Why this really small interjection of 3 verses about this battle? Who are they supposed to defeat when they went into the promised land?
Canaanite.
Who did they just beat here?
I forget.
The Canaanite people. What's God doing? He is getting them, okay, listen, you're not going to do this, but I want your children to know that even though you didn't believe me in the beginning, we can do this. I told you we could do this. Will you believe me?
Where was that, those 3 verses again?
Chapter 21, 1 through 3. Okay. Then they're gonna complain. You get the bronze snake and the serpent, right? That they all have to look at. That if they get bit by a snake, they can look to this image and they can be healed. Okay. Then we're going to get the defeat of Sihon and Og. I'm just looking over my stuff here. Og's the king of Bashan. The point being here, he's the king. Sihon's the king of the Amorites. The point being here is that all of these people around the Canaanite area, Israel's going to beat. They're going to defeat them. They're going to put holy terror into the Canaanites so that in 40 years when they come back, there's fear of Israel. Okay, I got 5 minutes. Balak summons Balaam. Okay, so now we're into the plains of Moab. We're under punishment, and the first thing that we have is Balak. And there's a bunch of stuff there that I won't go into. You can read it. But Balak is the Moabite king. Balaam I have left blank. They think, and this is where when I don't know, I will tell you, and if they don't know, I will tell you. They believe that Balaam is a defecting Israelite priest. They're not certain, because he seems to know an awful lot about God. But he's not very righteous, and we'll see that, okay? Take a look at, see chapter 31, 7 and 8. Matter of fact, we're going to, and I'll tell you what happens there for sake of time. You can turn there, but this is his death. This is Balaam's death. Israel's going to kill him, because he is going to prophesy 5 times, or he's going to try to. Well, no, that's not even true. He is going to be asked by Balak to curse Israel. Balaam's going to say, and this is the whole talking donkey thing, right? This is. I don't want to use unbelievable when I tell you to have faith, but this is kind of crazy. You would think, I need that rubber truck if I saw this type of things, right? So, his donkey's going to talk to him because he's going to see the angel of the Lord. Balaam's going to say, I can't do anything other than what God tells me to do. Now, here's what's really interesting. I've got to quit taking these things off. Look at chapter 24. Now this is chapter 24. Get your fingers turned back to I want you to look at chapter 24. And I want you to turn back, and in my Bible it's only this far, okay? It's real short. You want to turn back to Leviticus